I I don't really need an intro at this point. Do I? I don't think so. But I'm just gonna be going over, not really going over. This is like my personal study. So I'm gonna be looking. I'm just gonna be reading over the robotics primer from where I left off, and I'm also gonna be doing some Spanish homework that I got. So let's get started. Um, where did I leave off? Scroll, scroll. I finished chapter two. Let me move to chapter three. All right. So last time I was reading this, I just stopped at chapter three. Went over the food for thought. I didn't really make a video about this, but I did do a voice recording. So chapter three, what's a robot and robot components. Alright. Have you wonder what makes up a robot? What makes it tick? Chapter we look inside the robot to see what it's made of. Terms of both hardware and software appearing inside and will cause us to introduce briefly review the many concepts. So this is the definition of a robot that we got in chapter one. So a robot is an autonomous system which exists in the physical world, can sense the environment, and can act on it to achieve goals. So definition already gives a sense of what a robot consists of. Specifically tells us that robot's components are a physical body so it can exist and do work in a physical world. Sensors so it can sense and perceive the environment. Effectors and actuators so that it can take actions. And a controller so that it can be autonomous. This line right here, I'm gonna be completely honest. Just going off of like my own, like how I immediately interpret it. Controller and autonomous, like a controller so that it can be autonomous. That sentence kind of like a misnomer, because like how is it gonna, if it has a controller, how is it gonna be autonomous? I know what it's saying, but it's just the wording that's getting to me. It's gonna explain like what a controller is in this context though. So I know I'm wrong, but it's just something I noticed. Alright, figure 3.1 shows the core components of a regular robot. The way in which they interact with one another, the robot's environment. Let's talk a bit about each. Embodiment, sensing, action, and autonomy. Hmm? Oh, so you just simplify them into those. Alright, what am I going to use to highlight today? Let me use lavender. So that thick. Embodiment, sensing, action, and autonomy. So an actuator, controller, and a sensor. Alright, let's go back up. So I I'm just gonna try and alright, so the actuators are like motors and stuff like that, I guess. The wheels, those are actuators because they allow the robot to move and like act take actions. Controller is like this main body right here, because I'm assuming that's where the computer is held, and the sensor is the eyes that it points to. I think those are eyes, because like those are like cameras, I guess. So we'd probably use that to sense the environment. Oh, and neck actuator too, because like might be turning his head and stuff. All right, so having the body is the first requirement for being a robot. So to do things, move and shake, go places, meet people, and get work done. As a computer agent, no matter how realistically animated. Wait, a computer agent, no matter how realistically animated, is not a robot, because it does not share the physical universe with the rest of us physical creatures. Yeah, we went over this in chapter 1 as well. I'll just highlight it here as well. I really like highlighting these key points. Maybe not. It might just because I'm on video, but I feel like highlighting these key points actually it just helps me pick out what the main thing I should be getting from this is. Hopefully it helps me with my English and stuff. So um, I'm gonna close this. Our computer, no matter how realistically animated is not a robot, God doesn't share the physical universe with the rest of us physical creatures. It's not physically embodied in the real world. Embodiment refers to having a physical body, necessary for a robot, but it has a price. That's a price. We're all in the same boat. Embodiment. Oh, so anything like our embodied robot must obey the laws of like physical. Ugh. Since it's a physical robot, then it has to obey the laws of physics. And yep, laws of physics. Can't be more than one place at one time. Can't change shape arbitrarily. Some robots can do shape shifting. That's cool. It must use effectors on its body to actively move itself around. So it can't move without taking action. And it needs some source of energy to sense, think, and move when moving. Takes some time to speed up and slow down. Its movement affects the environment in various ways. Cannot be invisible. All the stuff like that. You are in my space. Having a body means having to be aware of other bodies and objects around. All physical robots have to worry about not running into or hitting other things in their environment, and in some cases not hitting themselves, as you will see in chapter 6. This seems easy, but it's not, so it's typically the first thing you program a robot to do. Avoid collisions. This actually does this immediately brought me back to what brought me into like robotics and stuff. I don't remember what it was. It was something mouse, maze mouse or something like that. But I'm pretty sure that's the wrong name. But the competition is basically you have like a mouse-like creature, like a small object, and the aim is to get that robot. The mouse has to be like a robot, and you get it to solve the maze and get to the center of the maze as quickly as possible, or wherever the goal is. So the robot has to be able to one sense the environment, has to be able to determine the best route. It has to be able to like search and like determine what's the other routes, because there's a size limit, right? So you can't just attach like a massive camera on it and like have it scan the entire ground and says, oh, this is the maze, let me put it down flat and then let me determine the best route and stuff. You can't do that. It's like a small mouse. So you have, so there's that. And also the speed isn't just about having the shortest path, because like the shortest path might not necessarily be the fastest, because it might have a lot of corners and stuff. So they're also programming would make ways for the mouse to like determine like how fast a route is. So it's really cool. That's immediately what they like thought had me thinking about. You're in MySpace, this section right here. Alright. And next I can only do so much. Everybody has limitations. Shape of the robot's body, for example, has a lot to do with how it can move, what it can sense, because senses are attached to the body in some way or another. What work it can do, how it can interact with other robots, cars, lawnmowers, cats, stuff, and people in its environment. So what really does that mean? So basically, you can't have a robot that does everything, because it just has limitations. So depending on how it's gonna move, you have the body set a certain way, and it might not be able to do other stuff. I think that's what it's trying to say. And next, all in a good time. Besides obviously influencing things that have to do with space and movement, Body also influences things that have to do with time. But in terms of fast, a robot can move at its own power at least and reacts to its environment. Also been said that faster robots look smarter. Huh? Faster robots look oh. Alright. Obviously influences things. Oh, I get what he's saying. Before I was like faster robots look smarter. So like like if you put like glasses on a robot, is that robot supposed to be like faster? That's in me. That's what I thought about immediately. But I realized what he was saying. So the faster you are able to make a robot, like the faster you're able to make a robot like process and act on something. So the faster the robot can think, then that in then like by anyone that's judging it, they'd say, "Oh, this is a smart robot because of how fast it moves or how fast it operates." I guess. All right. So embodiment, sensing, then acting. I think. What's next? Yeah, action. Then anything else? Brains. Alright. So embodiment, sensing, and action. I'm gonna finish up these. I'm gonna finish up sensing and action. Then I'm gonna move on to some Spanish word that I have. Oh, I actually need to study before I get to that. So might have a little bit of a gap. Alright, so sensing. Sensors are physical devices that enable a robot to perceive. Oh, let me highlight this. Sensors are physical. Wait, let me read it. Sensors are physical devices. Perceives physical environment. Alright. I'll just highlight this entire section because all of it is pretty relevant. Alright. What the robot needs to sense depends on what the robot needs to do, what its task is. So a good robot designer and a programmer puts the right kind of sensors on the robot to allow it to perceive the information it needs to do the job and to achieve its goals. Similarly, animals have involved sensors that work suited for their niche, namely their environment and ecosystem. Oh. What? So what would be an example of that? Sensors. That would be. I mean, bee actually is. There's a bee in my room that might actually come as an example. Is that a bee or a fly? Hopefully that's not a fly. No, anyways, I think it's that bees are able to pick up magnetic fields, and that helps them with navigation. I'm not sure what exactly that was about. I did not watch the bee movie. I wasn't paying attention when it was playing, but I remember that being a fun fact. Hopefully that's not a fly. Flash and nasty. Alright. So, more was chapter 7. Alright, so state. Sensing allows the robot to know its state. State is a general notion for physics. That's borrowed by robotics and computer science. And refers to the description of a system. I can't really highlight anything yet. I'm not sure what exactly. I'm actually having to pay attention right here. The robot system. Alright, so a robot saves the description of itself at any point of time. So to be in a state. More detail in the description. It is. The larger the state is because it takes more. What? The larger the state is? Is there a metric for states? Because like, I can get like, oh, the robot's in a state. Like where is it? Like maybe a robot can detect danger. See something around says that the robot is in a safe state, or a state of safety. See it like sees like something dangerous. Says the robot is in a state of danger or something like that. But the size of the state, I can get. I understand what it's saying. The more information that it's got that the robot perceives, then that means that it has a better description of itself. So that means the state, in terms of like the size of the information that it gathered and is using to define like its situation, that all of that would be larger because it takes more bits or bytes or whatever. I can get that, but I feel like it's gonna throw me off because they said the size of the larger the state is. To a robot, or actually any perceiving creature, state may be visible, or observable, partially hidden, partially observable, or hidden. Meaning that a robot may know a very little or a great deal about itself and its world. For example, if the robot cannot feel or see one of its arms, so the state of the arm would be hidden from it. Oh, I understand that. So, that's interesting actually. So this can be a problem if the robot needs to use the arm to reach for something, such as the hospital patient is trying to help. At the same time, the robot may have detailed information about the hospital patient state through a machine that senses all the monitors and patient's vital signs. Talk more about state and what to do in chapter 12. State may be discrete. Up, down, blue, red. How is that discrete? Oh. Or continuous, so miles per hour. That's a continuous state. Discrete is like a solid state. It's like a solid state. So first, the amount of information is to describe the system. Type and amount of information is to describe the system. Alright, so let me go up here and highlight the segment. So a robot state is the description of itself at any point in time. Let me get that. Robot system says to be in a state. Alright, so if a robot cannot feel or see one of its arms, then the state of the arm is in. If the robot cannot feel or see one of its arms, the state of the arm is hidden from it. Alright. On and off. So state space consists of all possible states that can be in. For example, if a light switch can only be on or off, so all the possible states can be in. For example, two discrete states, on and off. Oh. Wait, hold on. Mom? Alright. And so, state size will be 2. I mean, state space. What? So, all possible states of a system can be in. For example, if a light switch can only be on and off, state space consists of only 2 discrete states, on and off, and so is of size 2. On the other hand, the light switch has a dimmer on it, and we can turn to a variety of light levels that has many more states, possibly infinitely many continuous states. The term space context in this context refers to all possible values or variations of state. Alright, that's actually really important. I wish that, I mean, let me not I don't want to criticize it, but if that was earlier, I probably would have understood it better. But if it was, then I probably wouldn't have went through all that thought process, which might have been really helpful to me. So figure 3.2 shows an example of a robot that has two on and off bumpers and a high-low battery. Alright. So two on and off bumpers and a high. Let me put my feet up. Alright. Figure 3.2 shows an example of a robot, two on and off bumpers and a high-low battery. The states that result from those. Often useful for a robot to distinguish two types of state relative to itself. Internal, wait, hold on, let me go back and see the image. Alright, let me read this. Alright, I can understand that. So it's eight different states, and the states are an addition of the internal state as well as the external state. So like to define the state, it has to be inclusive of the internal and external state. So let's say you can only have like 4 different internal states and you have 2 external states. Like 2 external states. Then it would be like 2, kind of like 2 times 4, kind of like a math equation. Does that work, or am I just being dumb? State, but oh, I'm confused. I'm not sure how like state is represented. Like, do you just say state like high, on, off, or state like a word, state like a data set, like actual data, like ones and zeros? I'm not exactly sure. Let me continue reading. So unlock compose hello battery results from those, and state space that results from those. Often useful for a robot to distinguish 2 types of state relative to itself, internal and external. External state refers to the world as the robot can perceive it. Internal state refers to the state of the robot as the robot can perceive it. For example, a robot may sense that it's dark and bumpy around it, the external state, and also that the battery level is low, internal state. Internal state can be used to remember this information about the world. A path through a maze, a map, etc. The maze. I still can't remember the name of that mouse competition. I'll find it though. Called a representation of what to do in the internal model. Representations and thought models have a lot to do with how complex a robot's brain is. We'll talk about this at length in chapter 12, literally. Alright, so internal state can be used to remember what info. Controls data. Call representation or an internal model. So representations and models have a lot to do with how complex a robot's brain is. We'll talk about this in chapter 12. How intelligent the robot appears to be strongly depends on how much and how quickly it can sense the information itself. So it's external and internal state. So what can a robot sense? Wait, let me go back up. What is this? State. It's like state space. Is it talking about? Um. Oh yeah, that's it. Oh, I get that. Used for a robot to distinguish. Used for a robot to distinguish two types of stereotypes. I'm done here. I'm done here. All right. You know how intelligent a robot appears strongly depends on how much and how quickly it's sensitive around itself. What kind of robot sense? That depends on the sensors a robot has. All of the robot sensors put together create space of all sensory readings. Sensor or perceptual space for a robot has just a single on-off contact sensor. So the sensor or perceptual space for a robot that has just a single on-off contact sensor has two possible values, on and off. Now suppose the robot has two such sensors, and in that case, the sensor space consists of four values: on off on, and off off. So that's the idea. You can see our robot sensor space grows pretty quickly as you add more sensors, or the more complex sensors. That's one of the reasons why robots need brains. Sensors are machine. Let me highlight that. That's a pretty important point. More complex sensors. Another reason robots need brains. Sensors are a machine version of eyes, ears, noses, mouth, noses, tongues, ears, and various other sense organs in animals, what you will learn in chapter 8 and 9. Robot sensors, which include cameras, sonars, lens, and switches, lasers, and switches, among others, are quite different from biological sensors. A robot designer or programmer need to put his or her mind into the robot sensor space, and in order to imagine how the robot perceives the world, as in how the robot should react to it. It's not easy to do, precisely because while robots share our physical world, they perceive it differently from we do. How big is this chapter? Alright, I can finish it. So action. Effectors enable robots to take action, do physical things. The next best they are the next best things to legs, flippers, wings, and various other body parts that allows animals to move. Effectors are underlying mechanisms such effectors use underlying mechanisms such as muscles and motors. They're called actuators. Do actual work for the robot. So effectors enable the robot to take action, but they aren't what's taking action. So they use actuators, which are the ones that do the work. So, as with sensors, robotic effectors and actuators are very different from biological ones. They are used for two main activities. Let me just section out this part. Very important. So, with locomotion, manipulation. So two main activities for effectors and actuators are for locomotion and manipulation. So locomotion, moving around, going places. Manipulation is for handling objects. These correspond with the two major subfields of robotics: mobile robotics, which is concerned with robots that they move around, mostly on the ground, but also in the air and underwater. Then manipulated robotics, like considering robotic arms of various types. Alright, I get that. Mobile robotics locomotion mechanisms such as wheels, tracks, legs, don't move on the ground. Swimming and flying motions are also mobile robots, but they usually move in high dimensions, not just the ground, and therefore harder to control. Because refer to various robot items because they can cause degrees of freedom. Yeah. Separation between mobile and manipulator robotics slowly disappearing as more complex robots such as humanoids, which have to do both move around and manipulate objects, are being developed. Just like humanoids. I read humans, my bad. So Foucault sequence 3 shows a robot combines mobility and manipulation. And so up here. Alright. So up here is supposed to be like manipulating, like touching and picking up stuff. Down here like the wheels for moving, you can rotate all that. Yeah. So brains and brown. Alright, we're almost there. Brains and brawn. Robots are different from animals that in that biological brains take a great deal of energy relative to the rest of the body, especially in robots. It's the other way around. So actuators take more power than the processor or in the controller, the brain. So when it comes to computation, on the other hand, animals and robots are similar. Both need a brain to function properly. So cats can walk without. Huh? Cats can walk without using their brain? Purely using signals from their spinal. What? Wait, hold on. Let me Google that actually. Do cats need a brain to walk? Because I have a cat. He's up there sleeping. So can he sleepwalk or something? Wait, hold on. Cats need a brain to walk. A dead cat walking with no brain? What? Alright, what the what? What? Like 1920s, 30s. So they removed most of the brain of a dead cat. They left the brainstem and propped him up on a treadmill. What? How did they? No, no, no. I'm confused. How did they get it to? How is the cat a? It's a dead cat. Alright, if there's a video, I'm gonna have to watch that video because how does that work? I'm not shocked by the ethics of it because it's 1920s and even then like people would still do something like that just to see if it's possible. But that's actually odd. So let's continue. So brains and brawn. So cats can walk without using their brain, purely, purely using signals from their spinal cord. People can scruffles. It's up there. Purely uses signal from their spinal cord. Incentivization accordance. Similarly, well-designed robots may move around randomly when they process its research. Okay, this is not a good thing. So make sure you probably protect your brain at all. Your brain, either robot's brain too. Um, well-designed robots may move about randomly when their processor is reset. Oh, so in all sense, it's not a good thing. So make sure you properly protect your brain and your robot's brain. Oh, power issues. Power is a major problem in practical robotics. Power should think good. Right now, loading down with batteries. Instead of keeping electronics isolated from sensitive electrical preventing loss of performance at power level shop because the batteries weigh down. Or there is a sudden high power demand due to running into a wall. As discussed in chapter 4. Oh, and replenishing power and autonomous functioning by the robot itself. So as you dive into robots, keep in mind the brains and the brain are directly connected and related and should be designed and treated together. Alright, I'll highlight it. So lastly, autonomy. Controllers provide a hardware and their software that makes the robot autonomous by using sensors, inputs, and any other information. The memory to decide what to do, what action to take, and then control. Say the role of the brain or the nervous system. We say controllers and not a controller on purpose. Typically, there's more than one, so that various parts may have separate controls, as may various effects. Do all things come together in a central place? Since so controls enable robots to be autonomous. Alright? Pseudocode. Oh, we just started pseudocode in IT class, which is kind of disappointing. Why would just starting that? And I don't. It's one of the things that I don't really like about school in general. I always feel like it moves so slow, and there isn't really much opportunity for me to, like. I mean, there might have been, but only for math, and I missed that opportunity in grade 9 and yeah, just grade 9. But now it's like I just have to stick in like the slow classes, and we're just reaching this, and like pseudocode isn't really a hard thing to like teach or go over. It's an intuitive way of describing the controller, not any particular robot run. Yo, autonomy, ability to make one's own decisions and act on them. For robots, autonomy decisions are made and executed by the robot itself, not by human operators. Can be complete or partial. Completely autonomous robots, like animals, in their own decisions and act on them. Contrast teleoperated robots, typically, are partially or completely controlled by humans, and are more like complex puppets than like animals. Popular robots are not autonomous that are not autonomous at all, not really robots. So what did I learn? Um, I learned about the sensors of the robot and how the robot like is able to define itself and like the environment around it. So it does that with like states. So using the sensors and information that the robot gathers from internally and externally, it can you know give itself a state. So it can say, all right, so left trigger down, right trigger down, um, temperature hot, and then between all those are all different state options. So that would total out to like so. The left and right triggers can either be hot or cold, and I mean left and right triggers can either be up or down, and the temperature can either be hot or cold. So between those, that gives you about eight eight distinct states, because the state includes both the state includes internal and external state. So that gives you like eight states. And if I were to add another sensor that only has like two options, that will bring it up to 16 states. So the more sensors that you add, it becomes increasingly more complex. So the state of the robot is it takes a lot more space to like effectively define that space, and that also increases with the more complex sensors that you have. So that's sensing action. We learned about effectors and actuators. Effectors allow the robot to make decisions. I mean, act on decisions, but actuators are the ones that actually do the acting. So so like wheels, pistons, and stuff would be actuators. So after the time, the actuators themselves take up a lot more power than the brain of the controller of the robot. The controller of a robot would be the controller of the robot. Yeah, I think that comes under everything actually. The controller is what gathers all the information about the state of the robot. So controllers, let me say controllers, because it can be more. It's often more than one. The controllers, they take the state of the robot and they make this decision to what to do. They tell the effectors what to do. So they make decisions based on the states, and then they convey those decisions to the effectors. It's gonna take a while for me to go over everything, so let me just go over what else I have. So directly related attributes are together. Action, factors and actuators. About sensor space. Sensors. Gonna feeder sees arms. Say the arms move from it. Sensing. Embodiment. Alright. I'm satisfied. I think I learned a lot. So anything else I need to look at? So summarize. So let me just highlight these right here. Vectors provide actuators with the abilities to take actions. They provide locomotion or manipulation, depending on the type of robot, mobile or manipulator. So controllers provide autonomy, which may be partial or complete. Food for thought. What do you think is more difficult, manipulation or mobility? Think about how those abilities develop in babies, children, and then adults. Um, I think I think clearly mobility is harder because mobility in general, it's more complex than manipulation. So it just gave us like the freedom to use. The question gave us the freedom to use like motor skills as an example. So like for a baby, a baby putting a pacifier can take out the pacifier. A baby, if it wants to fling the plate, it can fling the plate. There's a lot less of a process involved with manipulation. So I'm looking at my mouse right now. I can see my mouse, so I want to grab my mouse. So I stretch out my hand, place my hand on the mouse, pick it up. That's like a simplification of it, but yeah, that's right. But when it comes to mobility now, so like I'm trying to get up and walk around. One, I have to be constantly mindful about the other objects. Mobility has to do with it's a lot wider range than manipulation. So it's like so I'm in a locked room right now. I'm in a closed room. So mobility, after instead of like only needing to look at my table to be able to pick up my mouse, I have to observe the entire room to figure out like where and how I'm gonna move. So then I also need information about like my internal state. How do I move my legs? How am I gonna move my legs? Is the ground clear? Put down my foot on the ground. Rotate, take steps over to the right, rotate again. Mobility, um, they're both on the same foundation. Like when it comes down to it, they're both they're both very very similar. Yeah, you don't really need to like split them apart. The same process that you use for manipulation, the same process that you use for mobility. It's just that you're manipulating the robot's body. So it's the same thing. So you observe your environment and you take the action to achieve the goal. But it just so happens to be that mobility requires you to know much more about your environment and need you to take more action and more complex action to achieve whatever that goal is. So, how large do you think my sense of space is? Ooh. What does it mean large? I mean, I'm not sure actually. How large do you think your sense of space is? How large do I think my sense of space is? Alright, sense of space, not state space. Alright, sense of space. How much can I sense? So, externally, um, can sense a lot actually. I'm assuming sense of space also includes memory. Let me check back, because it should. So, sense of space. Sensor space. Sensor space. I'm hearing my name being called in the living room, but they're not really calling me. So it's being, it's a bit tough for me to focus. So back up to sensors. Can I control F? Memory. So does memory count in like sensor space? Alright, it hasn't mentioned like the device memory, but I assume that sensor space includes like the memory, because the memory also includes like information about like the environment, I guess. So I'm probably wrong. There's a good chance I'm completely wrong. But I think it's pretty large if it includes like what I can see, can feel, as well as my memory, and then like my internal state as well. So can I think of things or information in my life that's observable, partially observable, and hidden? Alright, so I can tell that this dish on my table is blue. What can I say for partially observable? Partially observable. Mm. Alright, partially observable. Um, how is partially observable defined as well? Let me Google it. Um, partially observable. An entire state of the system is not fully visible. I need an example because I'm actually not sure. Oh, oh, that does make sense actually. Oh, so for example, right? I'm looking at this arrangement. I have two dish stacked in one another. From my perspective, I can see, like 3/4 of the dish, but on the side that I don't see, I'm assuming it's there. Would that be partially observable or hidden? Because I fill in the gaps with my memory, but I don't know for certain. Like I know it's there, but I don't know all the information about it. So I think that so I think that's what partially observable is. I know that it's there and it's present, but I don't know all the information about it for it to be like fully observable. So um, hidden I think would be like what's outside right now. I have no additional information apart from the fact that it's my house. But it's dark outside. I'm looking outside. I'm not really clear on it. So that would be hidden. Well, it's called partially observable and hidden in what again? It's just information. Oh, there's also the workbook. Chapter 4. What's in chapter 4 actually? Chapter 4. It's a pretty big chapter. It's a pretty big chapter. Alright. Locomotion manipulation. Alright. Look at the robot. Alright. Yep. I'm looking forward to chapter 4 actually. Looks like it's getting a bit more technical as I go on, which is really interesting. I'm probably gonna have to read it slow and go through it multiple times for me to actually learn the stuff. But that's good. So I'm gonna take a short break. What time is it? 7:90, 7:49. Oh, also, do you like my theme right here? I was working really hard to get it like this. Let me go open up to my home screen. Blue, like that. Hold on, I'm not done yet. That's just one. And I got food. Oh, that's food bar, right? That's food bar. Let me show you the real kicker. Boom. Look at that. Vintage, retro. Look at it. I'm actually thinking about changing the font for this right here because it doesn't really fit with all this. Well, yeah, I've been working a really long time. Hold on, let me actually open up my other browser, the browser I prefer to use all of the time. pale moon. Look at this. Look at this. This is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. All I really want right now is to get like these symbols to be like the same from like Windows 7, stuff like that. But yeah, I was working on this all last night, and I'm pretty proud of what I got here. Also, I do like Pale Moon. I really recommend the browser. It's a fork off of a certain version of Firefox. I don't know all the information about it, but it's very cool. It has a nice aesthetic. Um, the extensions that you can get actually does change the look of it. So this is actually an extension that I got. Let me see if I can disable it. Where is it? I don't. Oh, themes. Here it is. Let me enable Moonscape. Let me enable the default. Just open it. Right. Oh, so here's the default. Some people might prefer like this. I don't really. I prefer it the other way. But yeah, this is Pale Moon. It's really cool. So later on, I'm gonna be doing some chemistry. Not chemistry. I'm sorry. Spanish. I'm gonna be studying Spanish. I'm not really sure if I'll be able to post this video. No, I'm gonna post this video, but I might not post the other one, just depending on how late it is and if I got stuff to do. But yeah, yeah. So bye. Might see another video tonight. Probably not, but hopefully you do. Later. Oh, my head was barely visible the whole time. Oh, I thought it was like a full torso, like body. Oh well. Alright, bye.